Hey y'all, welcome to episode 16 of the Stay at Home Son podcast, and we got a review for you, and that review is reviewing a film that we both enjoyed called Smile. The worst is yet to come. We had the pleasure of talking to the lead actor and director of this film, so we have a little bit more insight now, so perfect for time to give a review. So I guess I'll go ahead and Thomas, you want to give us a little rundown of the film, and then we'll start getting into our points.
So basically in the film a wife and her husband decide to go on a retreat to I guess you call it like a log cabin or a lake views in the mountains of California because they try to get their minds off of the lady miscarrying. And in that they meet a social media influencer couple and they basically I guess kind of hit it off from there.
Yeah, that's about what happens. And when they hit it off, we have a trial of events, and these events kind of test them a little bit. It tests their character a little bit, because they have these issues. And I liked it because, a lot of couples, they fight, they have issues, and it gets swept under the rug. They act like everything's fine when there's obviously these big issues. And this film has a good job of gradually building that up to that breaking point. And each trial they go through kind of pushes the narrative a little bit more of like, hey, I feel like I sacrificed a lot for you, and I feel inadequate because I can't provide for you like I wanted to, and now I feel guilty about it. So I think it kind of builds that way. And I really enjoyed that very realistic dynamic about the film for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you there. I definitely I mean I mean you can check out our interview too. Wait, or yeah, you can definitely check out our interview with them too, where they say that this is based off their real life situation at this moment.
Yeah, it's very raw, very honest, and it tackles, I think, both perspectives. I didn't really get to get into this a bit with the filmmakers and actor when we interviewed them, but I feel like it does a good job of showing the feminine perspective of this issue and the masculine perspective of this issue. Because infertility is always looked at as a female issue, but it really goes both ways. It could be a man problem as well that they can't get infertile. So I think it does a really good job of kind of showing the struggles of both that goes with that, and wow, I feel like, Birdie, the lead role in the film when she's about 40 years old, and she feels like she put a lot of her life on hold to go for her career and to build a life with Ben. But now she's sitting here and can't get pregnant, and it shows that she feels really upset about that and she feels really sad about that. But it's also Ben has erectile dysfunction, so he has a hard time, getting and be able to impregnate her. So it's very sad in a way how it shows that vulnerability and kind of like both of them kind of suffering in silence a little bit. And it's kind of beautiful at the end where you get that resolve where they both kind of feel like they both finally were able to speak for each other.
Yeah, I mean that came to a head towards the end because they were both kind of like arguing with each other in the cabin. They're like, "Oh," she's like, "Oh, I want kids, but we can never have it," and he's just like, "Well, I don't know what else I can do about that."
Yeah, and I think that's something that can really speak to modern couples because, the old days of like traditional gender norms where it's like, the wife stays at home and the dad works, they're kind of falling out a little bit. Those aren't really the gender norms now. So now you have both working, both people in the couple working. And I feel like you're going to have a lot of people that put off having kids till later. And this is kind of a newer thing as the country because back in the day, everyone would have kids by the time they're like 25, 26. And that's just not the world we live in anymore. And I think this movie kind of shows like, hey, this is the some of the negatives that come with that new way of like having kids later. And I think that's kind of a raw and honest thing. And one thing I want to talk about that I found was interesting is I want to get your opinions on Thomas. What did you think of the two influencer couple? What was your first opinion of them, and then how did your opinion change as the film progressed? Because I feel like they were a very interesting and very important duo in the film.
Well, like I said in our interview with the director and the actor, I think that that was like one of my favorite parts of the movie is that there was like that kind of contrast between the lady and the male character who are not really into social media. Like the guy didn't believe in social media. All he doesn't have Instagram, nothing. And then there are influencers who have to post like every second of their lives. There was even like a funny story towards the end where like the guy is like passed out and they were like live streaming his wife's childbirth or something. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I think it creates good contrast, a good source of like conflict, kind of like, but it's almost like friendly conflict. It's kind of like the Odd Couple, almost like I say. Like I feel like they have some good moments, some bad moments. Um,
Yeah, definitely, dude. I mean, I feel like it does a really good job of showing like the vulnerability. And we talked to them about that, and they talked about how they didn't want this to be very opinionated. They didn't want this film to be a film that's like, this is the way to live your life. These are the people that aren't living their life this way, and these are the people that are, and look how it ends up. This film shows that we all kind of stumble through life. And I like films that are very realistic and raw about that. And there's times where I was siding with Birdie's character where I was like, that must be hard, doing all those sacrifice and your husband is not able to give you the kids that you were putting off for. But then there was some times I agreed with Ben's character where like it's like Birdie, you need to speak up and let me know why you're upset because he tells her when they have the fight, he's like, you never tell me what you want. And I feel like that's a big problem in the relationship because he's the one that's very driven. He's the one that wants to take the ball in the court, but he's so stubborn on his ways of thinking. When he had the speakeasy bar he opened up at the start of the film, it fails because he's not on social media promoting it. And instead of talking with his friend who calls him and says, "Hey, I'm gonna sell out of the business," he's like, "Hey, screw you, like this is how it's supposed to be." So he's a good character. He's a nice guy, but it shows that he's also very opinionated. And some of that pride and opinionated is kind of like his demise. So you get that resolve later where he realizes I need to listen to people. But then I feel like Birdie's character gets that too when she realizes that when she does get that resolve, it's because she spoke up finally, when she was drunk and her influencer friend filmed her and put it on Instagram and Ben freaks out. But that was the first time Birdie said what she really thought. And she was like, what I really think is that Ben looks at this as just one other failure. So it really tackles that very complex character dynamic of these relationships so well. And I have a lot of friends in relationships and stuff, and I mean everyone has relationships. We either be friends, either be girlfriends romantically. And I think it's important to know that it's a lot of gray area in these relationships. There's a lot of societal pressure and there's a lot of like expectations, but finding happiness and finding contentment with this person, there's not a checkbook for it. There's no rule book. You just got to be open and you got to be willing to put your ego aside a little bit. And I think that's what Ben ultimately does. It's almost like a redemption story for Ben because he starts as one way and then he ends the other way. You know what I mean?
yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I think like one of my favorite films was before they all start fighting over the drunken video post and then making up within 5 minutes after Ben judo slams the other guy.
Yeah, that was pretty funny when he gets judo slammed. um, but I think it just showed me like what I got from this movie, and I think what a lot of guys can get from this movie is sometimes it's important to put your own thought and own like agenda aside. Like if I'm super hell bent on doing it one way, but it's not working, the definition of insanity is doing something 1,000 times and getting the same result and expecting a different outcome. And I feel like as guys, a lot of times you're told like, oh, you got to be strong, you got to have this vision, you got to go for it. And I think this relates to filmmaking too, because there's a lot of times on films that we've done where I had to, kind of put down a little bit of the leadership and say, hey, I like that idea. We're gonna roll with that idea. And if I was super opinionated and super my way or the highway, I don't think the films we made would have been as good. So I think the filmmakers watching this can actually learn a lot from that about, it's put your pride aside sometimes and listen to the people around you and really listen because you might actually get a better outcome.
Like I was saying before, I think one of my favorite scenes before that whole fight scene went on, they were all in the cabin for it's a good 20 minutes or half hour of the film where they all like tell like their life stories. And I was thinking to myself, it reminded me so much of that campfire scene we did that everybody applauds us for just because like it went to like deep conversation. Well, I guess with the exception of the first one because she was talking about how she got into sex, but with the exception of that, they were all like very like deep conversations about like life and stuff.
Yeah, it was. I mean, what I liked about it too is it kind of showed like intimacy in a pretty cool way. A lot of times they show intimacy as something that's like really passionate. A lot of films, it's like this very passionate, intimate scene where they have like this music playing and like all these lights and these edits, like some 50 Shades of Grey BS. But this film really shows what intimacy has always kind of been like for me, which is kind of funny. It's kind of awkward. There's kind of some awkward moments. You bump your head. There's like, oh, I got a cramp. Oh, are you there? And I feel like this film kind of shows intimacy in kind of a funny, kind of light way, and I appreciate that because I feel like, a lot of films kind of make intimacy look more professional and more like this big moment than it really is. A lot of times it's just having fun and kind of being dorky with someone you enjoy. So I feel like it was pretty cool how they showed intimacy in a kind of a more humorous kind of, intimate but also light way. That was pretty cool.
Yes, I definitely. I mean, but like, I mean, what do you think though? Do you think that some of those like deeper conversations, like about how Birdie's parents got divorced stuff, did that kind of remind you about like when we were out in the campfire with the marshmallows talking about life?
Yeah, dude, Birdie's monologue when she was talking about how her parents got divorced and that kind of made her view of relationships. It did remind me of our scene at the campfire that we get praised for every time we do these interviews. So we did a good job on it, I guess. But yeah, I think it's important for films to have those scenes. I mean, I feel like there's so many bottled up emotions, and I'm like, if you have all those bottled up emotions, the viewers know it, the viewers can feel it. So it's good to have those scenes where it puts it all together and the character just says what everyone's thinking. So it's pretty cool that they did that. I applaud them for that. And the last little thing I want to talk about with this film, because there was a lot of really nice emotional scenes and a lot of funny scenes and deep scenes. But what the hell was that dream sequence scene, dude? Did you see that? You know what I'm talking about? The dream sequence.
Was that the one that I was talking about where they're like live streaming he's going through a flashback and then they're live streaming his child's birth?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's like a little
Yeah.
doll. I can't believe we didn't ask them on that when they came on the show because that took me by surprise because nothing about the film made me think that they would take that turn, to like that kind of like surrealist, and it kind of hit me by surprise. So I thought that was kind of cool. If y'all are watching the film, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a scene in there that definitely takes you by surprise because you feel like, oh, it's kind of like a feel good rom-com kind of film, and then it like has this like whimsical, crazy dream sequence that kind of sneaks up on you. So I wish we would have asked them about that. But that's something for y'all to watch. But all in all, I give this a really high rating. Like I said, we don't do ratings, but this will definitely be nominated for one of the films of the year that we're going to do in our little award show in January. And I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. And remember, stay at home.